I'm Aaron, that's Zach, and this is UTV Driver.
It's a rainy day in the shop, and that means we are stuck at a desk. Behind us, we have the 2023 Polaris General XP4 1000. It's the 4-seat General. We really like this rig, but you know what? We realize we don't do a great job talking specs.
To resolve that, we have a PDF with specs written on it. And we're gonna tell you what those specs are, and then we're gonna get granular on what those specs actually mean in the real world.
Yeah, because, you know, we test all these rigs, so we're gonna talk about what the suspension is and how that impacts how it performs in comparison to other rigs that we've had our hands on.
What does ground clearance translate to? What does suspension travel mean?
So we're gonna start at the top. Top is price. That's the top of everybody's list, right? Polaris says the absolute base General, the 2-door, starts at $18,199.
And the one behind us, the General XP4 1000 Ultimate, is listed here on the spec sheet at $31,999. But as of today, I just built one on my phone and it's listed for $1,000 less than that at $39,999. The lesson here is you always want to check on the website or with your dealer because these prices are often subject to change. Your dealer might be running a deal, Polaris might be running a deal, or it could be the end of the model year. So you never know exactly what you're going to get out of the door for. But first, I think we need to start with the elephant in the room, okay. Shall we say?
Yeah, hit us.
How much does it weigh? Polaris claims that the XP4 1000, the rig behind us, is 1,998 pounds dry. So that means no fuel in it.
That's not a very useful number.
No, it's not. So
yeah, because, you know, it turns out a machine with no fluids in it doesn't do a lot for you.
No, you can't drive it.
Need that gasoline.
Yep, and gas is heavy, and coolant is heavy, and oil is heavy.
Also heavy.
Batteries, heavy.
Heavy. Does batteries count as dry weight?
Nope.
Polaris says just under 2,000 pounds. We always weigh everything with a full tank, so you know exactly how much it's gonna weigh. And we are looking at, any guesses, any guesses, any guesses?
2350.
Oh, no, 2,110 pounds.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's
usually it's not that close.
Good on Polaris for being fairly accurate.
But Zach, what about weight distribution?
One thing that you don't get from a curb weight on a spec sheet is weight distribution. Weight distribution has a huge impact on how a machine handles. If you have a lot of weight in the rear, you can get sort of a pendulum effect as you come around a corner. It can feel really unstable. If you have a lot of weight up front, the thing can understeer. This rig is surprisingly well balanced. 55% of its weight is in the rear, 45% is up front. And what you're looking for is a 50-50 weight distribution for a nice neutral handling vehicle. This is pretty good, especially for a 4-seat rig with a bed.
I would say that's pretty great, especially with the long wheelbase. That's going to give it a really nice, predictable kind of slide characteristic, and that's fun.
What about engine? What about power? What are we dealing with?
The engine is Polaris's venerated ProStar 1000cc dual overhead cam, liquid cooled 4-stroke twin. It's a parallel twin. It's a characterful little engine. We like it pretty well around here. It's backed up by Polaris's PVT, which is a continuously variable automatic transmission, and they claim it makes 100 horsepower.
Which is pretty good.
That's pretty good. Zach?
Yeah.
Gotta control those wheels.
Yeah.
How are we doing that?
Well, it's usually the nut behind the wheel. But in this case, the nut behind the wheel is using an electric power steering system. Polaris does a really smart job with these systems. Super low effort. And that stuff matters when you're out in chunky baby heads, you're doing rock climbing, you're in deep mud, all that stuff. You're not getting worn out.
Next, the drivetrain. The drivetrain is Polaris's true on-demand all-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive with turf mode. That last part, pretty important. Walk us through turf.
This is a Recute rig, right? It's got a bed, you can tow stuff, you can put stuff in the back, all that's great. If you are running it around on a farm, you don't necessarily want your rear axle locked all the time. So a locked rear axle means that when power goes to the rear differential, both wheels turn at the same time. Turf mode unlocks that rear differential, so you can have one wheel that turns and one wheel that stays put. And that's important when you're turning, right? Because the outside wheel needs to move faster than the inside wheel, and that allows the vehicle to not tear up the grass, which is why they call it
turf mode.
Yeah. On-demand all-wheel drive. It's basically a mechanical front differential. So instead of having a limited slip in there, it's a true mechanical locker.
Yep.
And it's not, you don't push any buttons, it's not selectable. The second you're in 4-wheel drive, or what Polaris calls all-wheel drive, it's ready to go. So the second you get a little bit of slip on one side, the other side engages, and whoop, up you go. Oh boy, front suspension, that's a lot of words.
There's a lot of words in the front suspension. The important ones are not words, they're numbers. 14 inches of travel.
That's a lot.
That's a bunch. Yep, and it's matched at the back by 14 inches of travel. The XP1000 Ultimate sitting behind us has Walker Evans needle shocks at all 4 corners. They're external reservoir coilover deals, very similar to the stuff Fox puts out, but not quite as top shelf, but very good.
If you were racing one of these, yeah, you're probably going to chunk those, but nobody's racing in general, right? I mean, well, sometimes we do, but that's aside the point. Most people aren't racing a general. We very rarely bottom one of these out.
Yep.
And it only happens when we're being
real stupid.
I was gonna say aggressive, but it's real stupid.
There are a bunch of clicks of adjustability for whether you want soft and compliant over rocky terrain or stiff and supple over fast terrain.
You'll set it the first time you get the thing. You'll probably leave it alone, and it'll probably be great. Ground clearance is part of what is important when you have a really flexible suspension too, because you can have a thing that is 6 inches off the ground that has 14 inches of suspension travel, and your belly's on the ground all the time. This does not have 6 inches of ground clearance. It has 13.5 inches.
Which is a ton.
Yeah, I mean, think of a 2-liter Coke bottle. You can drive over a 2-liter Coke bottle, no problem.
Yeah.
And it's fun, right? Because when you put somebody behind the wheel who hasn't had a whole lot of experience in one of these, they'll roll up on a rock and they're like, most of the time you just go right over it. It doesn't matter. And the great part about these things are you've got skid plates all along the bottom, so even if you do touch bottom, you just slide right over it.
Yep.
It's great.
Yep. But Zach, 14 inches of travel.
Yep.
Front and rear. Sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in the real world,
Well, I'm so glad you asked. We have a test exactly for that, which
You don't say.
We've begun calling the
flex test.
All right, let's flex test this thing. Jackson Cooper behind the wheel. He's going to run up our ramp. 20-degree ramp. The rules are pretty simple. You go as high as you can without lifting a wheel. The second you lift a wheel, you back off just a little bit to make sure all 4 are touching. Then you measure up the ramp to find the center line of the front wheel. You divide that distance by the vehicle's wheelbase. Let's check out what that score turns out into. So we just ran the numbers. This thing turned out a 337, which is a pretty good number for a Recute rig. That puts it just behind the General XP1000 Trailhead Edition. That's a 2-seat rig, so much shorter wheelbase. The king of the hill here in this segment is still the RMAX 2 1000. Yeah, that sucker's turning out a, let's see, what do we got here? A 648.8, so, nearly double. All right, let's get back inside. Next on the list, brakes. We got hydraulic discs with 2 piston calipers front and rear.
They're side-by-side brakes.
They're side-by-side brakes.
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, we haven't really had a rig that we've been like, man, these brakes are dialed.
Yeah.
And part of that is for a reason, right? Think about a dirt bike. If you've got a dirt bike and you clamp down on the front brake, you're going to eat gravel. It's going to lock up, you're going to slide out, and that's going to be that. Manufacturers know that most people who are buying one of these rigs aren't full-time off-road racers, so they don't have a whole lot of experience. Their feet might be a little binary, on and off. So you come into a corner, you're carrying a little too much speed, you yard on the brakes. What you don't want is the brakes to lock up, because that's when bad things happen. Like you go
straight off the end,
yeeting off of a cliff. Instead, you get a lot of travel that is sort of soft and doesn't have an immediate bite. We would prefer something a little more aggressive. For most people, I don't think they're gonna notice.
You're gonna stop.
Wheels.
This one has 15 inches according to this.
Yeah, which we like. They look good.
30-inch tires, 15-inch wheels. Pretty standard across the industry. They're pretty. They're alloys on the upmarket Ultimate Edition and on the Premium, and I think on the Sport too.
Yeah, and like a base rig will get you 12s, which looks a little on the golf carty side.
Yes.
But the 15s look good. They look good and gnarly.
30.
Tires, you've got 30s on all 4 corners, and that's just the right size. These things, they've got huge wheel arches. You want some rubber to fill those. And as we learned recently, tire rolling diameter plays a huge part on in how the vehicle performs in the flex test.
Yep. Yeah, it's the bigger the tire, the lower the pressure you can run, the better it's going to flex. And these are fun because they're the Pro Armor crawlers. They're different front to rear. So you've got sort of a tracking tread pattern in the back that's going to keep the rear doing what you need it to do. You've got a more aggressive tread pattern on the outside of the tire up front so that you have grip on the outside corner when you turn in. They're reversible back and forth depending on the terrain. So Polaris thought about them, and they're great. We love them a lot.
So this is the 4-door, right, Aaron?
Yep.
So that means it's the long boy. This is the school bus, the limousine version. What are we talking about?
150.2 inches, which in American is...
No, inches are American?
It's 12.5 feet.
Oh, 12.5 feet. Oh yeah, no, I know what that means.
That's big.
Yeah,
that's like
big.
a Nissan Versa. 64 inches wide.
Okay, so...
Bog standard.
Bog standard, yeah.
You're not going to go down the narrowest trail out in the rig, or in the forest, but you'll get down 90% of them just fine.
Yeah, and that, you know, that 12.5 feet for a 4-seater is still fairly compact. You know, we've had 4-seaters in here. Some of the big Can-Ams specifically, they're monstrous. They're huge.
They're literally the length of a Suburban.
Yeah, and some of us out here on the East Coast, we don't really have room for a rig that big. We have a lot of really snaky, tight trails, and you'd find yourself doing the Austin Powers thing where you're forward and reverse, forward and reverse, forward and reverse. You don't have that problem with this thing. It's good and maneuverable.
Wheelbase is 115 inches.
You know what's funny? Sometimes I actually prefer the longer wheelbase. The rig just lets, that extra little wheelbase lets all 4 corners do what they need to do in a timely fashion. It's just a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, the middle of the rig kind of acts like some spring action too, and climbing big steps. I've said this 100 times. I don't know if anyone believes me, but I really feel like you get a little bit of extra traction when you're climbing steep stuff.
Yeah, because that extra width in the middle lets your front tires get up while your rears are still on the bottom without having to try and climb the whole obstacle at the same time.
Yep.
This thing has a bed. This is why you buy a General and not a Razor.
Yes.
What's that bed do?
That bed hauls stuff, specifically 600 pounds of stuff. 600 pounds is a bunch.
That's a bunch. I mean, so think about 50 pounds of dog food, right? That's 12 sacks of 50-pound sacks of dog food. That's a lot.
Yep.
It's got an assist bed. Super easy. Drop the tailgate. You can dump stuff out. You know, in reality, most people are not going to have 600 pounds back there. You're probably going to have, you know, a couple sticks of firewood, a cooler, maybe some camping gear, some stuff like that.
If you break 300 pounds, call us. We want to know what you put back there.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to put your cousin Eddie back there, so don't do that.
It'll tow 1,500 pounds, which is a lot. 1,500 pounds is a bunch, and you know, if you need this thing to do work.
And it's got a 2-inch receiver on the back, which means, you know, really for us, what that means is it's great for moving a little trailer around. So we'll hook up either one of our single axle trailers, or if we need to move the big 22-foot car hauler around just to get it out of the garage or whatever, it's great for that. You don't have to mess around with moving a big diesel truck around. Just hook it up to side by side and go. Pretty great.
Seating capacity. That one's pretty obvious. 4.
Yeah. But seating capacity isn't always obvious, right? Because just because a vehicle can seat 4 doesn't mean it can seat 4 full-sized humans.
Because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly. This, on the other hand, it's super comfortable in the back.
Yep.
There's a console in the back.
2 cup holders.
2 cup holders. The seats are great.
Fuel capacity, that one's important. You don't want to get lost out on the trail because it ain't got no gas in it. This will hold 9.5 gallons. We've yet to strand ourselves in one for lack of fuel. And we've put some long days on a General. You
know, 10, 11 hours of reasonably aggressive riding. You're not going to run this thing dry. It's impressive.
You might touch half a tank.
It's tough, right? Because everybody wants to know what kind of fuel economy a thing gets, but you can't exactly do miles per gallon in UTV because everybody's riding is different. If you're riding in sand, you're going to use a boatload of fuel.
Yep.
If you're just riding around on hardpack, you're not.
Yep.
So, and you know, speed plays a part in it. How many people you've got in it, all that fun stuff. All right, so let's say you buy one of these things fresh off the showroom floor. What kind of warranty are we talking about?
We are talking about a 6-month limited warranty. So it's not bumper to bumper, but you go out to the trail, you realize that there's something wrong with the powertrain that shouldn't be wrong on a brand new rig. Take it back to Polaris, they're gonna fix it for you.
Yeah.
At least for that first 6 months. And I think you can buy extended warranties from the company. But
yeah.
if you're not interested in that, 6 months limited, free of charge.
And, you know, 6 months is pretty standard in the industry. This rig, the 2023, is out now. You can go buy one of these right now.
Yep, on the showroom floor.
And if you do, let us know. We want to see you out riding around in this thing. We want to know what you think about it.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. That's everything you possibly need to know about the 2023 Polaris General XP4 1000. If you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe. I know everybody says that. It's hugely helpful. It makes sure that you see our freshest videos all the time in your homepage. You can also check us out on utvdriver.com. We got news 5 days a week. We have buyer's guides, we got galleries, we got videos, we got all sorts of fun stuff. Check us out on all the regular social media channels. Until then, catch you later.
See you next time. I'm Paul Newman, that's Tom Cruise, and this is UTV Driver.